Yeah, it's still a little chilly out here. We've had a little bit of precipitation, a little rain, so um, it's still been a little chilly out here. How's it been out there on the East Coast, Florida and Georgia?
Oh, it's hot.
Warmer. Yep, it's warmer.
E,
Definitely.
what's up, man?
Hey, what's up, Chris? How's it going? How's the wine?
Oh, we good, man. Well, it's actually I just used the wine glass for something else, but
Oh, okay.
I had it in the I had it in the cabinet. I was like, you know what? Instead of red cup, I'll go with a wine glass filled with vodka.
Nice, nice, nice.
Mm, mm,
Right here, I'm kind of I guess I don't want to try to advertise a company. Let's turn the label backwards. But I'm like double fisting here. Got my Coke in one, and then my little energy drink for a little bit of pep. You know, sometimes I got a whole bunch of things going on with all the different shows, so I want to get going in different directions sometimes, and I want to try to stay on target on what we want to talk about tonight. Um, of course, I'm gonna completely mess up the show title and everything because I am mine is scattered. But welcome everybody who is here to join us. This is the Political Matrix. I'm your host, Young Morpheus, and I'm here with my good friends, Mr. Cy Lawson and Mr. Blue Maverick himself. Hello, gentlemen. How are you doing?
I'm good. I'm good.
Good, Marcus, hanging in there, man.
All right. I guess we'll get into the show topics I have tonight. And so, of course, we have to talk about Biden's speech at least a little bit because it has been 50, what is it, 50 days, a little over 50 days now into his presidency. So we have to talk about it. And I don't know if the two of you have followed my thread in probably the last maybe 30 minutes to an hour. I've kind of blitzed out a whole bunch of different articles and didn't really explain them, just kind of gave headlines. Well, I'm alluding to a bigger picture. As we talk about here at the political matrix, we're not just going to focus on one issue. All of these issues are all connected. So we got to look at all these moving parts all the time. We can't get so focused in on Biden and COVID and all these things like that, and then get focused in on the stimulus or only get focused in on, whatever domestic issues, whether it's Cuomo, any of that stuff, because there are bigger pieces that are moving in a different way, which me being a veteran and a avid student of history and wars, I have not seen this much conflict going on at the same time in God knows how long. And it's amazing to me how everybody's focusing on the royal family, racism there or whatever, and all of these other stories.
Hmm.
And just none of this is being talked about. What are some of your thoughts, fellas, before we get into, some of those topics I rambled through?
You can go, Chris, first. All right.
Oh, I mean, I'm one I tend to pay attention to a lot of things foreign policy. So for me, you know, um, I'm pretty much on the same page as Marcus is. You know what I'm saying? I've like I said, even as a kid, I always thought foreign policy was far more interesting than domestic policy. It's really only the last couple of years where I've really started to look at domestic policy. Most of the time, I've always had my eye on what the hell we was doing off this rock and what the hell we was doing somewhere else. So Biden, I didn't watch the speech. I saw a little bit of it online, but I'm so disinterested in it. It's like whatever, you know what I mean?
Well, I mean, to interject real quick, a little bit about Biden's speech. I watched most of it, and if you were looking for kind of a speech which was trying to appeal mostly to your emotional effect and your sympathies and things like that, then that was the approach of the speech, I believe. Whether it was genuinely coming from his heart that way, or whether that's the message they want to guise over, so you don't focus on a lot of the other things which they didn't actually fight for or accomplish. But you know, I'm kind of more of a pessimist, so I'll step out. What do you think, Emmanuel?
Well, I'm like Chris here. I did not watch literally any of the I didn't watch any of the speech. I watched one clip which alludes to what Marcus is talking about. He's basically trying to appeal to people, you know. What was it? He said help me. He said help me heal the nation, help me heal the country, get your vaccine or some shit like that. And I'm like, I was like, this clown's about to roll up into my state and literally start shilling that shit for like a week in a fucking victory lap. So I'm perfectly fine with Marcus talking about whatever the hell he wants to talk about because that makes me mad. That makes me mad. That literally makes me upset. So yes, please let's talk about foreign policy in Latin America and what happened in Bolivia and stuff like that. Please, because
speaking of Bolivia, since you said Bolivia, do you know what happened in Bolivia?
Yeah, the lady well, the establishment's calling it a coup, but we know what that means, a coup, right? That lady got arrested and yeah, she did, and that was a good moment for me. So it was just like, yeah, you're right. Like all that stuff with the royal family and Biden and Como and the rest of them, they're talking about like Como's going down on one end and like Meghan Markle might run, the Duchess might run for president in another. You don't need to pay attention to any of that. You don't hear that? All that shit is pointless.
Well, with that, I think that's a distraction.
Yeah, I know. I was like, that's all this
other members of the royal family who have recently had attention on them.
Mm-hmm.
And so much, try to say this carefully, you know, much more in a much more notorious light. So I think it is more convenient to talk about something which in all actuality just kind of makes people feel bad and nothing really comes about of it in the end. You know, even if it's a little thrown together drama or if it's actually something which is legitimate that's going on there. I mean, I don't want to judge. I'm not involved in their situation. But it is taking off the attention of a big story that's been going on with another member of the royal family. I just want to keep that in the forefront of our minds.
You referring to the friend of Epstein?
Mm-hmm.
That's what we gonna call him, the friend of Epstein.
Brother in crime, you mean? Right?
Yeah. You know, the one who knows nothing. You know, he's never done anything wrong. You know, he's always been on the up and up.
I see she noticed my KU hat on tonight. Yeah, in fact, I was kind of wearing it in kind of feeling a little solemn for him tonight, being out of the tournament. So for those who don't know, we're talking about KU was knocked out of the tournament because of positive COVID test on a couple of athletes. So, you know, for safety precaution, the whole team was taken out, and I believe Virginia also was taken out.
And Duke, so, Duke too.
Duke also. So yeah, they're all hoping that they might be able to make it into the
tournament,
into March Madness.
Right.
But we don't know. We'll see soon enough. So let's see.
But going with Bolivia, you know, Shorty proclaimed herself to be president, much like Guaido, announced himself to be president.
But, don't forget, I cannot remember this gentleman's name, but the one in Ukraine. Do you remember who I'm talking about?
Who, the leader?
They have kind of like a little puppet master situation going over there in Ukraine also. And he's like some kind of interim president, and there's kind of a power struggle going on. Goodness, Franco was talking about it not that long ago. So he I wish that I had him on the line. I don't know. Maybe I'll hit him up later and ask him about it.
Alexander Turchnyov or something like that.
I think something like that. All right. I think the last name started with an N though. But yelling the climate change. She was yelling climate change to the Europeans. That's why they're going in on her. Going in on who? I'm curious.
Right.
Yo, what do you guys think about climate change, though?
Sure. Yeah. Let's hear, Emmanuel. Let's hear your thoughts, sir, on climate change.
I just think it's all performative and
let me ask, have your views changed on it over the past, from what you thought about it, 3, 4, 5, 6 years ago versus now? Have you had any change?
No, I mean, I think climate change is an actual thing that's happening. We are seeing massive weather disturbances that haven't been ever seen. So I do believe climate change is happening. I just believe that the government and the corporations and the powers that be just don't really care to do anything performative about it. They're just pretty much comfortable just letting the clock run out on it. And, and like I've said before, they'll die from old age and we'll all die from climate change, tides rising, super tornado, shit like that. So just performative accords and agreements and, pushing it, kicking it farther down the road. What is it, like 2050, 2060, something like that? So that's all it really is. It's just.
How about you, Marcus? I would ask you the same question. Has your opinion on that topic changed at all from when you first started thinking about it to, today?
Yes and no at the same time. The reason why is I believe that the data is clear on what's going on. Although I believe that, of course, there's always going to be people who are trying to profit off of things and are manipulating information. And so you always got to look at everything as much as you can with a fine-tuned comb. You know what I'm trying to say. Mm-hmm. Anyway, and sometimes some of the information will be dead on, but you always got to worry about that 5%, 10% where things are off or not correct. And sometimes that's where it can lead you awry on some of those things. Without continuing to be so vague, what I mean is when they start saying certain dates or this is going to happen, that's going to happen, it gives people this either false sense of security or over urgency. And so what happens to the mass public is everybody says, whatever, you guys are all full of it. And everybody sits back. And so when that happens, people stop taking the situation as serious. So for me to sum it up easily, I'd say it's almost biblical because it's, you see the car accident coming and you can put your foot on the brake, but for some reason, you just don't want to do it. And that's what I see happening with a lot of the situations we have going on around the world. We can see which direction they're pointing in. And if they keep going in that, obvious direction, what are the possibilities? But it seems like they don't want to do anything, whether it's on climate change, whether it's on the situations which are ramping up in the Middle East or the Red Sea area. Some of these things that are going on within Germany with the trade issues and Merkel possibly losing her seat of power, and who knows who might come into power. There's a lot of moving parts which are going to factor into negotiations that we have with other countries, and maybe some of our relations, which were so cozy before, might not be as cozy as they were before. So that could also affect products that come into the country that can affect all kind of things. Some of these countries also have gotten a lot better with their cyber divisions, i.e., North Korea, Iran. We can go on and on. And since we're going into more of a high-tech era and everything's going online, it's more risk of all kind of things happening. I mean, we saw what's happened with the major movie industry, where they've stolen movies before they were supposed to come out in a major blockbuster release. And so if they have that kind of ability with billion-dollar corporations, and our government uses old school tech at best on most things, then you also got to worry about what may happen with different leaders coming into power.
No,
sorry to go too long.
No, you straight. I mean, I'll share my opinion. At first, I thought it was something. Well, let me say this: nothing stays the same, right? There is going to be change in terms of the climate. Do humans have a certain effect on it? I'm sure on some level, right? But for the most part, this stuff is going to happen anyway. What has recently really, turned me into a skeptic is, again, looking at all the people who are pushing hard for climate change legislation and planning. Again, it's the same people telling us about COVID. It's the same people telling us about, Iraq had weapons of mass destruction. Iraq had weapons of mass destruction. Iran is building a nuke. Again, it's all the same players. And, Bill Gates now wants to put something in the air to block out the sun to help climate change. So now I'm just looking at it like, okay, this is something that we probably need to push back on at this point. I know that upsets a lot of people on the so-called left. But, I mean, again, you have to just start looking at the people who calling the shots and, putting these things on as agenda items. You know what I'm saying? Like, does it serve your agenda or does it serve ours? You know what I mean?
Well,
clearly.
I was sorry to interrupt, but I was going to say, here's another wrinkle to add in that I don't want us to miss before we move on to another point. All of this military activity, as things start ramping up, even if something doesn't happen, the more ships, the more tanks, all of these things, the more personnel that you're flying around all of these places, all of those things are affecting climate change also. And so you have to keep that in mind. So even if the government says, oh, well, we're going to get back into the climate accord, or we're going to come into this other accord, or whatever they say they're going to do, as long as they're still having this large footprint from military activity and from giant corporations, it doesn't matter how many cans we try to collect or how many buckets we try to separate our plastic from our glass and bottles. None of that's going to matter if our major corporations and our military does not reduce their footprint themselves. And I just don't see that happening.
Look, they keep giving them more money. Why would they ever reduce their footprint?
There's money, money in pollution. There's money in there's money in not doing anything about it. They'll just, my theory is always, they'll just destroy the planet and then just get up and leave. That's always been my personal theory about it. It's just they'll just mine the planet for what it's worth, and then boop, gone. Everybody else, good luck, whatever. People don't want to believe the concepts about like colonization on the moon or space hotels or anything like that.
You don't want to go with, the other thing, since we here, you just brought up space and we talking climate change. Again, I'm gonna go way out there. You know what else is bullshit? That whole Mars shit. That whole landing on Mars, and I'm sorry, you could call me crazy or whatever, just say I'm an ultra skeptic, but I ain't buying it, man. That shit just looks so. the images we get look so fake and so phony. And they gotta really justify spending all that money that NASA gets. So they just tell everybody they made it to Mars. But man, we can't even get shit right here. And you tell me y'all put something on Mars and you able to transmit a video, but you know, depending in the subway in New York, you can't get your cell phone to work, but they send the shit. But we could see pictures and images and all this shit from Mars. Nah, player. Y'all may have got me years ago with that shit, but now, nah, I'm straight. I'm good. I ain't buying that shit no more.
I was gonna ask you, Chris, could you pull up that you know that video that I sent you from Claire Daly, that politician, I believe she's a politician in
the EU Parliament.
Ireland?
Yep.
I believe in Ireland.
No,
I was wondering
What's her name? Claire Daly?
Yeah, Claire Daly. I put it in our direct message, in our group message.
Oh, you did? Okay, let me find it. But go ahead.
In that one, she goes into some of these things that have been going on, and recently there has been. I guess before I get into that, or I guess let me see what Signs has here.
I got it ready. So whenever.
Says in history, when citizens, that's trying to trip me up with that word, citizenry was fleeing as fascist or otherwise unsavable future / present government, what would keep them from leaving? To hopefully pave a way for like thinkings to follow, help, get. So,
Exactly, Louis. Who was recording that, Louis? Sorry, go ahead.
I don't know why they. I have no clue why they do some of those things, which they do. It sounds like a good excuse to blow a lot of money on pretend science. Sorry to say it that direct, but I mean, they're talking about things which they say are light years away, which even if you got somebody there, how would you know they got there? I mean, it doesn't make sense to me. Some of the stuff that they're talking about. I mean, you're like, yeah, this is going to take 300, light years to get there. And it's like, so have you perfected the technology to freeze the people so they'll be alive that long so they can wake up and experience and have you figured out the communications to that place once they get there for them to get back, or at least to get some communication back to you? That's the reason why I say it's like pretend science, because they're just pulling just random crap. Sorry to say it, out of their ass. It just doesn't make sense. We literally have the ocean, which, what is it? At best, 10% of the ocean has been discovered. They can't figure that out, which is on the planet we live on, that we've been on for thousands of years. Or if you want to go by scientists, they say, billions of years, which I don't know how you would calculate that. I don't know who's a billion years old, who was sitting there, counting the days, or he marked the first year a billion years ago and somebody was just etching the next. I don't know how you would figure that out. But I guess Chris dropped out. But I just feel like a lot of the stuff they're doing is to justify excuses for why they can't allegedly get back to the moon. And so if you can't get back to the moon, then start planning all these other adventures to go everywhere else. So everybody will stop thinking about the fact that you're not going back to the moon. Now, you might say, okay, well, we got the space station and we're out in outer space and we got this and we got satellites, but you say you're going to get back to the moon. Now, let's just get back to the moon and then establish that, and get how about make it so people can go back and forth, so we can actually all experience seeing the moon. Let's get that down packed first.
I mean,
Then
Elon was
if you
ahead of
can,
it.
then if you can establish a colony on the moon, then we can probably take that elsewhere.
Well,
But
Elon was
I feel
big
like
on that for Elon
I
was
feel
big on
like
that for a couple of years, right? And then recently, what's been happening? Um, his shit starts blowing up on landing, and shit. He's got explosions here and there, and I'm just like, how long has he been doing this? You've been doing this for a while. You would have resolved some of them issues. So
oh shoot, we got Jalen in the house. Yes. Um, Everything's good, young fella. Thank you for joining us. For me, it's like you would want to take care of one thing first. For instance, if you're gonna start out training, say, a sprinter, you want to get them used to jogging first, get their lungs up. That way, when they start actually sprinting, they're able to run at full capacity. Now, if we haven't mastered getting to the moon, which I'm sorry, I'll be honest with everybody. I do not believe we went to the moon. So you guys can say, oh, crazy conspiracy, whatever. I don't believe we went to the moon. And later on, I will put the disclaimer out here first for informational entertainment purposes. I don't want anybody trying to go up to any random people and claiming that I for 100% know that they are this person or that person, which is supposed to not be. Yeah, don't go harassing anybody and saying, well, I saw this on his channel and I want you to explain this to me. No. This is just for your information and entertainment. I want to put that out there so YouTube also doesn't come after me either. I'm not telling anybody to go and do anything crazy. People are crazy enough on their own. They do not need me to give them any suggestions. They're going to do it on their own. Sorry, what were you going to say, Emmanuel?
No, I said you're afraid they're gonna put a strike against you. I get it. That's what everybody.
I just want, because I've always felt like, especially as adults, we make our own decisions. Now, if you decide to start listening to somebody's information and you don't take your own due diligence to take that research further and verify, some things you may be able to say, you know what? Okay, Marcus, he was wrong on that. I can prove right here, I got it. That's fine. But if you say, wait a minute, I even see that there's even stuff that he didn't notice here, and he has a point here, then follow it to its conclusion. That's all I'm saying. I'm saying I want all of us to be free thinkers and to start really looking at everything with a clear lens. Because we got to remember, anytime somebody gets in power, we got to remember, we did have kings and queens for centuries all over this nation while we have the whole royal family drama going on. But with that going on, wealth was passed down, power was passed down, which turned into corporations, which turned into all kind of other things. And so with that going on, we got to understand that there's dynamics that we might not understand, that we don't always see clearly. So people have motivations for why they do certain things. I mean, I used to find it funny that most of the archaeology that was found pre-Christopher Columbus in the Americas was like 90% of it was considered fake. And I was like, why are they considering all of this stuff fake? And now, years and years, decades later, they're finding out, well, actually, these other archaeologists believe that this is actually authentic and it matches up with this from this region of the world. And you start realizing, well, if people have power, they can make decisions. And maybe it's in something huge, um, as in a politician, maybe going down or being promoted to a certain elevation through the media, or, possible advancement into, say, a governorship. You have to always kind of look at these things, and I say keep a skeptical eye, because when it comes down to it, when you start getting to these upper levels, there's enough money, and all they have to know is, what is your interest? Where do you want to see yourself? And with that money, it gets hard for some people to stay on the straight and narrow. Let's see. I see Thomas is in the house. What does he
What's
have
up,
to say?
Thomas? Hey, Thomas. What's up, Tom?
Thomas says, I'm
I
interested
agree
in
with
the
Thomas. Yeah.
situation, but we have to fix our issues on Earth first. We got climate change, COVID crisis, and economic crisis on a global scale. Exactly. And that's my point, which I was saying before. We have a lot of things that we need to handle first and foremost here. And if we can't deal with those things, why are we trying to do all this extra stuff? And for me, it's just a smokescreen, so you don't have to do all of those things you need to do. It's kind of like, hey, get them excited over here. Don't pay attention to the fact that your bridges are starting to fall apart, or that your school systems are not getting the proper funding that they need.
Can't get
You know,
high-speed rails.
exactly. All of these, like, thousands of things which are affecting us in all of these different ways, which could easily be fixed if it wasn't for handfuls of greedy people who want to manipulate, micromanage, and control everything. What are your thoughts, Chris, now that you pop back in?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know how far you guys got. You still talk about Mars, or you still talk about NASA? Like, what you guys move on to?
No, that's pretty much what he's been on for like a good
Like,
Oh yeah.
mission.
You know what? While we're back at it, why don't you bring that clip up?
got it.
Do you still have it? Yeah.
Yeah, no, I still have it. Yeah. I got you.
Yeah, this is Claire Daly. I'll have to look up exactly who she is. Well, I think she might just be an activist, but she's from Ireland. I know that for a fact by her accent, and she's going into some of the stuff that's going on over there.
She called out. I'll talk about it later.
No, go ahead.
No, I was like, she called out America pretty solidly. I can't remember. It was like 6 months or a year ago or something like that. That's how I know her. Cause it was her honesty as a politician was fresh. So that's what I was going to say.
Yeah, I think she might be a former politician.
Okay.
Now yeah, just give me a second. I'm just grabbing up my speaker real quick, Marcus.
Oh yeah, get the speakers going. That way we can hear it nice and clearly. And also, I'm glad you have the subtitles on. I just want, because some people might not understand different people's accents very well, so I want to make sure what she says is clear. Also, what is it called? U News, I believe. If you're not familiar with them, please check them out. They've been covering a lot of the, almost, it seems like almost minute by minute, how it comes into my feed, talking about all of the different diplomatic communications going on between China and France and the US, and a lot of the tensions really flaring between all of these nations. And a lot of us look at it and try to look at just the military angles, but we also don't think about the sanctions which are done, the attempted coups that are done, the payoffs that are done internal to try to get people to defect, all kind of things that are going on, besides just the overall military movements. And so some of those stories, which I tweeted out earlier on Twitter, they were kind of an example of just some of those things which are going on movements, when you start seeing China buying 30% more beef from Russia, well, where was China getting their beef from before? They were getting American beef. As those nations start going away from American products more and more and more, and they decide, you know what, we don't need to deal with America. I'm just saying problems can arise. So without further ado, let's get to the clip.
I press play, just waiting on it to start.
Alrighty.
Yeah, I don't know. She's not playing no more. I don't know what's going on about her. Okay.
10 years ago, a genuine movement of Syrian citizens demanding change in their country was hijacked by international players who saw this as a chance for regime change. Turkey opened its borders, allowing jihadists flow into Syria, armed and supplied by the US and some EU countries. There were no moderate rebels. The West armed and financed al-Nusra, al-Qaeda, and ISIS affiliates. They unleashed this horror on Syria, aided and abetted by Israel. The government and the people of Syria, with help from Russia and Iran, defeated ISIS, driving them out of most of their territory and regaining control of most of their country, but at an enormous cost. Hundreds of thousands dead, the displacement of 6 million Syrians internally, forcing another 6 million to flee. Terrible crimes happen in wars. There are no angels, but the efforts of the US and EU to claim that the Syrian government used chemical weapons against their own people in Douma is particularly pathetic. Like the phantom weapons of mass destruction and dodgy dossiers from the Iraq war nearly 20 years ago, whistleblowers from within the OPCW have exposed this account and shown that the evidence was manipulated. So unable to achieve regime change militarily, the West has imposed a brutal regime of illegal sanctions. The UN Special Rapporteur on Sanctions has said that they violate the rights of the Syrian people. The EU's High Representative, Joseph Borrell, told the Parliament this week, no end to sanctions, he said. No normalization, no support for reconstruction until a political transition is underway. So Mr. Borrell is saying he's happy to bring about economic and humanitarian catastrophe, to watch thousands of Syrians die unnecessarily, just to produce the political transition that he wants. These are the European values we hear so much about. Foreign sovereign countries have to bend the knee to Western imperialism or be destroyed. I don't think so. That's not the future that the citizens of Europe want. It's not a future that the people of Syria or the Middle East will accept. We demand an end to sanctions to allow the Syrian people reconstruct their economy and allow the return of their people who want to come home.
Agreed. I mean, again, the chemical weapons story about Assad using that on his own people, you know, that they talked about that that was a couple of years ago. Now that we know that the story that we were told or that was sold to the rest of the world was fake as fuck. You know, Obama tried to make that his red line, but he looked stupid when he didn't do anything because he knew that the information was soon to come out, and it did. Thankfully, the people who worked at the few people at the OPCW who came forward to bring us this information, thank goodness for them, because if not, we may have been looking at a situation where we may have actually like further destroyed Syria more than what we already did.
Well, and then recently, I think it was an Iranian ship that recently just got hit by a missile. Nobody was harmed, but you know, it was a fire that broke out, and I guess barely clipped it. It didn't hit it dead on, but everybody. And now reports, I guess a couple of hours ago, cites that Israel is the suspected, you know, person behind the attack. So with that going on, Iran
Duh.
has already been threatened to. They said, hey, if more stuff keeps happening, then, and then with that report, which we just heard there, it just showed you all the players who have been involved in all of this thing.
Look,
and
then to go even
going
further, people on the ground there have reported that the ISIS fighters and the al-Nusra fighters and the Free Syrian Army people all receive medical care in Israel. So I mean, that just tells you it's all part of the fucking operation that these games these people are playing, man. You know what I mean? I laugh only to keep from getting frustrated and tight about it, but it's all a game.
What do they talk about in the national? What do they talk about in national news? Palestinians don't get Palestinians not getting the vaccine. That's what they talk about.
Exactly. And you know that's a psyop too, to make it seem like, oh, they're withholding this great and beneficial thing from these people. It's the same thing here in Florida, right? I mean, I know we're jumping all over the place, but it's the same psychological mind game that they're playing here, right? Because they're like, oh, DeSantis, the governor here in Florida, is not making vaccine distribution equitable, especially to Black people and, you know, poor Black people who aren't able to get this vaccine. So, you know, then it becomes like a class thing because only the rich get it. They're jumping the line. And then it becomes a race thing. Oh, Black people aren't getting it, but white people are, and Hispanics aren't. So again, it's just a mind fuck to get you to want to go put this thing in your arm when you should be running away from them. If you see them waiting to stick you, you should go the opposite way.
What is it? One side is America's trying to stop people from getting the vaccine, and then the other side is like a completely different. What Denmark or whatever is literally saying that one of them gives like straight up blood clots, right?
Mm-hmm.
I'm like, you know, it's just conflicting information here and there, and it's all just meant to it's just a form of terrorism. It's to terrorize you. It's to distract you from what's really going on. So, yeah.
Well, speaking of information that has kind of come out and then come back around that's old information, I just saw a video recently, which on my other channel, I'm probably going to go into because I feel a little bit more comfortable going into it on that channel. I kind of throw all caution to the wind. Whereas this channel, I do throw a good amount of caution to the wind. But in the other one, it's brand new. It's a small following, and I don't think they're really worried about me at this point. So I'll push the boundaries a little bit more. And so in this, I'm going to show some clips that will be reminiscent of what happened to George Floyd, which happened to be from what's happening inside of Israel with the Palestinians. And so I'm going to have a little mashup of some clips that'll be coming. That'll be on my Hebrew Apologetics page.
Wait, before you drag away from that topic, and I know it's technically national news, but do you think he's gonna get off, don't you? Because I think he's gonna get off. I think Chauvin's not going.
I think he's gonna get probably maybe 4 to 6 years at best.
Really? Y'all think they're gonna put him in prison?
I think he's gonna. He's gonna walk.
If he gets convicted, 4 to 6 years at best.
I don't think he's going there.
You got to remember 4 to 6 years. That also depends on which prison, which type of prison they send him to, whether it's a federal or whether it's state. So
well, he wouldn't.
How his parole could be, so he could end up getting out 18 months or something. You get what I'm saying?
Look, they just gave the family of George Floyd 27 million, right?
Mm-hmm.
They just gave him 27 million. If you notice, they're not even mentioning anything about the other officers who were there on site that day. So again, this is just they emotionally manipulating people. Watch, and they're gonna want people to hit the streets again. It's so predictable, man. I just gotta keep laughing and smiling at this shit, man. The more I see, the more I have to step away.
You say that, and then that reminds me of another story that I was looking at. Remember how last year, right before all the protests started getting up with all the strikes and everything here stateside, in France and the UK, at that same a couple of months before everything started over here, as far as those kind of worker protests, the same things that's what was going on over there, which was part of the whole yellow vest movement.
Mm-hmm.
Right now, what we have going on is in Germany, those same kind of protests are starting to pick up again. And you're starting to have that going on in Germany and a couple other nations over there in Europe. And normally, whatever starts happening in Europe doesn't take long before it starts matriculating over here.
Right.
So,
did you hear what happened in
yeah.
Did you hear what happened in Italy? They're starting to close shit down again they're gonna start closing schools and businesses and shit down again by Monday. So
Really?
Mm-hmm.
I didn't. Oh, that sucks. I thought they was gonna be braver than that.
Right. You were all like they opened everything.
Yeah.
You were so proud, and then
I was like, no, they were fighting that shit.
They turned around and they're gonna by Monday. They're gonna be right back to lockup again, which means whatever's happening over there definitely gonna start happening over here. And then you saw it in Denmark too.
With
that. Yeah. With the
I think we're gonna see more of that. Sorry. Go ahead.
No, I'm sorry. Marcus is right. I was just like with Denmark, Italy, Denmark.
Yeah, no, you ain't lying. I'm just reading here that they're from Monday, March 15th through April 6th, they're gonna be a shutdown. Yo, what the
Mm-hmm.
Hey, look, if people are gonna be so dumb to comply, it is what it is. Oh, a side note, totally unrelated. Oh.
We're gonna have to, how about this? How about me, you, Jalen, and Chris? We'll set up a live stream, just the three of us, and then we'll talk about that in detail.
Yo,
but for my answer, what I will say is Israel is already putting that into play, and China has already put it into play. I've seen a couple of articles from Haaretz, which is a very credited source, and so that's where a lot of their gyms and concerts and all kind of things are already starting to open back up, as long as they've had the vaccination. And basically, it's a phone app which they could just scan it, and it shows that they've gotten both of the vaccinations. At this point, not all airlines are forcing you, or I would say are requiring you to use this app, but it's something that they believe that might start catching on, and it might start, becoming the norm.
Unfortunately, it is at the Barclays Center in Brooklyn. Like even now, I saw the story yesterday. They're going to be requiring people to either show the fact that to show that proof of vaccination or a recent negative COVID test. Like it's coming. You know what it is? Like it's too many of our citizens, the brothers, sisters, what have you. Too many of them bought into this shit and they believed it. Hook, line, sinker. They didn't question it. They just ran with it. Now it's too late. It's just madness. But if they want to go and get themselves stuck with this experimental nonsense, hey, go right ahead. Like, just leave me out of it. But I guess I won't be traveling too much in the near future.
Yeah, I don't plan on doing any traveling myself either. I'm just going to kind of keep it. Hey, I won't judge those. Whoever feels comfortable with the vaccination and they want to do it, I will leave that up to you. Myself personally, my own opinion, I'm not doing it. So that's that.
I hear too many of them saying, they took it and all of a sudden they're not feeling well and they need to go to the hospital. And I'm like, isn't that exactly why you took the vaccine in the first place? So that you wouldn't have to experience any of that. So
Jalen, are you talking about Brooklyn? That Brooklyn's dad?
No.
Oh,
No, he's talking about
Because
Brooklyn. No, hold on. We're gonna get into that. Hold on, real quick, because I got to say about that. We talk about the Brooklyn Nets.
We need to talk about that. We need to talk about that.
yeah,
But I
talk
did
about
want to
him.
bring that up because you know what's funny? I've been trolling that dude on Twitter for a while now. And I had kept saying that this dude is a Democratic operative. You know, not too many people said anything, but it's just the way he would say things. It was like, yo, you just reading, you getting your talking points from the DNC, like, oh, this is what they said. Let me tweet now. Like, and then sure enough, we found out what? He's getting paid by the DNC through their many packs to
Right. 60 grand or something like
say
that.
the shit he says. And I'm just like, but you know, again, it's those accounts that have huge accounts, huge followers, a lot of people retweeting, liking, you know, and things like that. You got to be very careful of those types of accounts on Twitter. You know what I'm saying? If it's not like an athlete or an entertainer, if it's just a regular person like that, you got to be very careful. Like, chances are they spitting bullshit, but since Twitter is now a liberal circle jerk, I'm not surprised that there's so many people came out to defend this dude. And he calls himself Brooklyn Dad Defiant. First of all, you can't be from Brooklyn acting like that.
It used to be finest.
Yeah, but look, you can't be from Brooklyn acting like that. And you're not defiant. You more like Long Island compliant, nigga. Like, you're not Brooklyn defiant. Get the fuck out of here.
I mean, they came out the woodwork defending that man, and I'm like, just amazed.
Yeah, but I thought that was funny. That reminds me of the Krasenstein's account too. They the same way.
Mm-hmm.
Remember the two brothers that used to be up under all Trump's tweets every single time?
And they got banned, and then their mother had to wife or mother like tweets in their stead or whatever. And
then they went to Mrs. Krasenstein, and I was just like, it's the same thing. And they got mad at Trump for doing that. They should just let Trump back on if that's the case.
Yeah, it is. It's hilarious now. Did you see that article that I put out about the ratings being down?
About the what?
The ratings being down for most of the network journalists.
Hell yeah!
Trump got office, and you basically have Biden, who's Mr. Invisible President, because he like barely shows up. Let's see. Oh, could you mute real quick? I hear a little echo.
Got you.
Biden, since he's like barely shows up, the media doesn't have anything to cover, and there's a reason why. They figure we'll rather deal with everybody wondering why he's not in the media instead of him saying stuff that gets him into trouble. Because everybody knows once you let Biden talk on his own, he is going to put his foot so far into his mouth that he's going to start destroying all his credibility. So they're going to hide him as much as possible unless they have scripted speeches, scripted interviews. That's just my opinion. I could be wrong, but what do you think, Chris?
What I think about the way that they're handling Biden. I mean, this is to be expected. I mean, they handled him during the campaign, right? They limited his appearances. They limited, the questions that reporters could ask him. They just limited everything about that guy, man. Like, we all know from just looking at him with common sense. If you got an older family member and you've watched them, kind of deteriorate with age, if you've seen a family member, then you see Biden and you already know what it is. Like, it's not anything brand new. Somebody say he's a deep fake. That's funny, Louis. But yeah, like, he's that's Sleepy Joe. You know what I mean? Like, it's all fake. Yo, E, what you think about your girl AOC, man? She's, the more polished she gets, the more full of shit she gets.
No, I know. I'm like, no, she's not. No. I mean, no, she's gearing up to be she's gearing up to be president or something like that, because she's definitely showing, back in Cobra and stuff like that. I'm like, oh my, no, don't call him on any part of that. That's like Biden. He's asleep nationally. Foreign policy wise, he seems to be pretty much doing the exact same that Trump was doing and Obama was doing. So what's up, JL? How's it going? But yeah, it's just they seem to be of a hive mind to do nothing. Democrats seem to be of a hive mind to do nothing. And there are so many people who don't get that this is by design. It's by design for them to get. That is by design for them to get more money. AOC operating that way is money, and maybe, like, I think she supposedly wants to. I believe she wants to be president. That's my theory. That would probably be the theory of the Justice Democrats and the rest of them. And nah. It's just all the distraction and fake mess and all them tweets of them walking somewhere. And I was just the other day I was like, well, hell, I could walk somewhere and do nothing. Why don't you pay me? You could pay me to do that. You could walk somewhere and do nothing, right? So it's all fake. People need to pay attention. That's it. But nah. I mean, they're. I guess they're trying. I guess this is the part where they're trying not to have a repeat. Not to have. I guess 2022 look like, what is it? 2010 with the midterms, because everybody's thinking, they're gonna have a shot, and they're completely right. He's not. I said it months ago, weeks ago. When they were all cheering for Biden. She's back on Como's on. She's finally on Como, and Como's on the ropes, and I'm just like, if Como goes down, we're gonna start seeing trouble, particularly soon. I said that.
Hey, Emmanuel, can you go out and then come back in? Your echo's getting really bad.
Okay.
All right.
Yeah. And what's your thoughts, Chris?
Man, you already know, man. I just think all this stuff is nonsense and bullshit. You know what I'm saying? We just got to work with each other. You know what I mean? Take care of your own, stuff like that. Buying into the system and getting your blood pressure worked up over it is like just not worth it anymore. You know what I'm saying? They go eat.
Okay, is it better?
Yeah, go ahead.
No, I can't remember. No, I can't. You were talking about. Well, how much did you get before the echo started messing with me?
I heard most of it.
But yeah, it's just the same dog and pony show, same dance. It's whatever. It's their bought and sold or whatever, and then what do you call it? Her touting out the stimulus plan like he's the savior for like he's all of a sudden the savior for poor people. She's like, you don't know how much. He's like, you don't know how much you're getting. It's so great. You don't know how much you're getting, and I'm just like, literally, they'll blow through that money in like a month. That money will be gone. That money will be gone in legitimately a month. Just
the Washington Post put out an article, and they said that $1,400 will pay your rent for 7 months.
Right, but they didn't put in the specification.
7 months.
They didn't put in the specification that it has to be a family of 4, and that money brought in like $5,600. And then even if you split that by, and I'm not even a math genius, even if you split that by 7, that's what, like 800, and you're not even talking about like utilities or bills or health insurance or any of that. You know, it was just it was a crappy article. You know, they've been trying Biden as the savior for poor people. You know, I suspect they would have went off beat him about it and called him Jesus at some point. Now they get backlash or whatever. So, you know, it's just depressing. It's depressing to see how many people say, you know, I got them good now, and I was like, for how long, like it doesn't resolve, you know, it doesn't resolve the lower class losing what, I think it's like 3.7 trillion. You lost $3.7 trillion in the entire shutdown, like, you know, 1,400, 3,000, whatever. That's not going to fix it or whatever. And I know Chris probably knows this. Did you know that the creditors can come after that 1,400?
It is not
14 months to 1,400 piece.
It is not protected. It is not protected at all. They can still, if some of your shit is in collection, they can go ahead and take your money.
They're coming for it. They're coming.
Sounds like you didn't vote for Biden for turning your black cards. My black cards stay with me. It's tattooed on me. From the top of my head to the bottom of my feet.
No.
Oh yeah, let me hop in and say this real quick. And for those who plan on staying up late, after this, I'm gonna hop on with the man himself, DJ Elf7, which you see who's popped into the chat. So I wanted to throw acknowledgement out there to him, also to my other, friends who always hop in here. Variant Signs, Kelly. My apologies for anybody that I don't shout out, but and also I see the Louis 420, who I see who is new in here. Thank you for joining us. It was definitely fun throughout this conversation we've had. But it was something that I wanted to bring up with that also before I wrap. Please check out some of the videos on my other channel, Hebrew Apologetics with Marcus Cage, on Indo-European. In one of those videos, I took the reaction video, which a lot of people have seen all over the place, about the British and how they went and they conquered all over and all the different nations they went into. Well, I actually got back to the original Indo-Europeans and how they might, starting from the Caucasus mountain points down to when they started to migrate across through Europe, along with the time, and then all kind of other interesting things on there. Also, a couple other videos that are just as fun and entertaining. So, I just wanted to put that out there before I forgot. I want you all to please check it out. And some of the content down the road is not going to be for the faint of heart, but it is truthful to the best of my understanding. So I guess I'll turn it back to you fellas. You have anything to say or anything else you want to talk about? I keep feeling like we're missing something.
Yeah, I mean, we probably are, but I mean, there's quite a, this thing's happening, but at the same time, it's just like, we could talk about it, we could critique it, but at some point we got to try to find like solutions, you know what I'm saying? Or like a different way how to like really separate from the matrix and, you know what I'm saying? Like live your life on your own terms. I keep looking at the Amish, like maybe they had something right. Not so much every part, every aspect of how they do things, but there's certain things about them. Like, look, they probably growing their own food, chilling, making their own clothes, like on chill mode. Like maybe those aspects are something that maybe we could look into, et cetera, et cetera. But as far as participating, to continue to participate in this system, I don't even know, man. Like I said, now you want me to put something in my arm to be able to get on the plane that you're gonna overcharge me for anyway. They build a plane with rooms for bags. Now you're charging me for bags on the plane too? Like it's just so many things that don't make any sense. So it's just like, we got to find a way to take care of ourselves. Yeah. So Kelly says the stimulus. Some people have already gotten it.
Right. Some people got it. Supposedly, supposedly after Biden's speech, they were talking about it. Can I say it's either going to come on Friday or Monday? So strikes with what you read. So.
Yeah, some people have already gotten it, but they're going to get it later. I'm just going to be watching on Instagram to see all the shit that people buy that they really didn't need, but they wanted so bad. So it's going to be cool to watch that.
Well, I mean, I think that honestly, a lot of that money is just going to be sucked up to probably back bills and credit card.
Responsible people will do that.
Yeah, credit card bills, back like that.
You're definitely gonna have your degree of a mixture of people who are going to be responsible and people who are definitely not going to be responsible. But on to Kelly, to answer, no, I have not gotten mine. I didn't get the last one, so who knows what's going on with that? We'll see. A story that I put out that I found pretty interesting. Now I know it's a local LA thing, so I don't know if it's going on in other areas, but I think it's something also to watch out for. A lot of vehicles have been getting stolen, and they've been stealing the catalytic converters.
Yeah, because you can melt those down and make platinum.
Mm-hmm. And so that's something that has been on the rise during the pandemic in the LA area. And so I don't know, whatever commodities people might start getting creative to start stealing in these time periods, but to just pretend that, oh, well, everything's just gonna, even if, say, the vaccination is perfectly fine, everything gets back to normal, we still got a lot of economic damage which has happened in this country, which we're not recognizing. And a lot of creditors who are sitting like ravenous wolves at the door, just waiting for the right time. Because, Biden is so cool with most of them that he's told them, okay, all right, for politics' sake, you guys just hold off for a little while, and then we'll give you guys the moment when you can start collecting. But right after the presidency, we need our ratings high. Go into the summer, give people a little bit of happiness, then we can kind of stick them right after that because we can perk them up for Christmas. So it's all calculated, and you got to remember, they don't pay all these people around them, these advisors, millions and millions of dollars to not research all these things, to plan it out, to not figure it out. What I advise, because I believe that anything on the major stage or federal levels is so compromised, and anybody who is trying to actually do anything is either going to be marginalized, they're going to be, I guess, set up for something, pushed out of the door, or, arrested or worse. I believe that the people who kind of have the major levers of control, mostly the donors and the people behind them, they kind of engineered the system out to a level that once you start getting deeper and deeper in, you realize they kind of thought of all the angles, and they're already watching you from the moment you get in the door. So I advise for strategies on the local level, wherever your local community is, whether you live in a parish, whether you live in the county, whether you live, in a borough, get to your local councilman, your local alderman. Try to get in touch with your local mayor's office, and then try to focus on some of those solutions which you can work on close to home. And if you can get some of those solutions to work close to home, then there's a possibility that some of those things might catch on a state level. And so I would say try there, because I feel like at that point, most people, whether they're coming from, say, a left wing perspective or a right wing perspective or more independent, I feel like they're more coming from a genuine perspective versus a DC lobbyist paid, I have to be on the Democratic or the Republican or whatever side. And so a lot of the politics on the major level are kind of more out of play when you're on the local levels. And so I say that's where you can get push because you can actually get involved a lot of times with people in your community. You can set up meetings, all kind of things like that to actually try to do things. So start finding out about these actual races when you have a sheriff race or when they're having judges. Pay attention to all of these things. And you can actually start to affect change in your own community if you start focusing more on a local level. That would be my, I guess, positive advice.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, shout out to Rome. Shout out to Rome, holy for getting on Fox with this mutual aid action. All right, what Marcus was talking about. Actually directly helping the homeless. So I just wanted to give him credit where credit was due because I've been following.
He puts in work.
Yeah, I've been following him for a while. He got banned on Twitter. Getting banned on Twitter, and then he came back. He came back came back strong. So total points to him. Props to him.
No, I see Rome all the time. I follow him, but he puts his money where his mouth is. You know what I'm saying? He's out there in the streets in Detroit doing what he's supposed to do for his community there. Doing whatever he can do for the people who are most needy. So for that, I clap for him. I salute him. You know what I'm saying? I shout that man out. Good job. Probably need more of that. You know what I'm saying? Because again, trying to take this thing on from, DC on down, it's just a losing prospect. You got to deal with the people where you are, and you got to build it. You got to build that up. So if everybody is able to do that, then you could turn around and look at DC and say, all right, you guys are in trouble. But you just have too many people who are still believing in the AOCs, in Kristen Sinema, in you name it, whomever. You know what I'm saying? AOC, I mean, she's from my district in New York. You know what I'm saying? Like, it's kind of embarrassing now to see her act like this. It is, man. It's sad. But, when you go from nothing to getting six figures, I get it. Yes, that is correct. They were sending checks to wherever you last filed your taxes with, whether it's H&R Block or Jackson Hewitt, etc. If you did your taxes through there, in some cases the government was sending a check or doing a direct deposit into that account that you set up with them. So that was creating problems for people. You know what I'm saying? Me, I just asked for a check. I still ain't get one yet. But I've been working the whole time during this pandemic, so I've been fortunate. Like, would it be nice to get that cash? Yeah, but I've also kept my full-time job. I have not skipped a beat at all. Like, matter of fact, we're busier than ever.
Yeah, that's why I'm not complaining either, that I mean, I know it's a lot of people out there who are out of work, and that's what I also worry about some of these, the way they've done this whole stimulus plan, because some of these people are going to be basically under that same problem that people have with unemployment when they were sitting on long, endless waiting lines, trying to get through. I mean, there were people waiting 8, 9 hours to get through. Some people day after day after day, 6, 7, 8, 9 hours of doing that every day and not getting through. And now with these new programs, you're going to have to apply the same way. Or else we're going to have to deal with another website issue. Like, remember what happened with, what was that, Obamacare?
Yes, it was.
No,
It came online and then it froze.
It was a mess.
Where I haven't really seen them too much. They haven't been saying anything about anything. You know what I'm saying? I'm surprised, referring to the Obama since we brought them up. I'm glad that they haven't been saying too much. I like when they go away. Same for the Clintons. You know what I'm saying? I just really want them to go away. I only said that because you brought it up, Obama.
All right, look, you didn't know this, but you probably should. There's talk of, and I'm trying very hard not to. I'm trying very hard not to get nauseous hearing this, but they're talking about Hillary Clinton running for governor of New York because of what's going on with Como, right? Obama, well, ever since he did his little bailout for Springsteen, that's I hear from Obama, you know, his little podcast with Bruce Springsteen, I guess, to talk about interesting white people stuff. I guess
I didn't hear that, but that's funny shit.
What? Yeah. Oh, you mean the governor thing? That's just today. They want her to run. I'm like, oh no. No, it's full on.
She's like a cockroach. Like, no matter how many times you think you kill him, like she's just always there. Like, what the hell? She just like they don't go away. And for real, it's like the cockroaches in the New York City project building. You know what I'm saying? Like, yo, they just move from unit to unit, kid. Like,
what? Watch, you're gonna see more of it. I've seen it already on Twitter in my feed. I've seen multiple people, you know, the normal centrist neoliberal, which I believe are paid agents because I've read plenty of books like Bob Woodward's book when he talks about how some of the actual aides to the politicians, their job is to go out to the media, or in this case, get on social media. And then, hey, I think it would be a good idea if Hillary Clinton was in the mix for this. And they start creating a buzz. And then what happens is a lot of their influencers who are already on Team Hillary, they start tweeting it out and it gets the buzz created. It's the same thing which they do with Politico and was it Salon.com and a lot of those other ads.
And Axios and all that.
You know, they did that with your Brooklyn Dad not too long ago. Like every single person that was calling out Brooklyn Dad, all of a sudden there were these numerous trolls that were coming out of the woodwork, spitting out the same script over and over again. I was just like, you know, nothing changes. So everything is, you know, it's all the same. It's all the same shit, different day, right? What's that? Right.
Mm-hmm. Oh. You know what? And last, before we get out of here, I did, Marcus, going back to, I think this right around the time I had got booted earlier. Going back to the Breonna Taylor, Derek Chauvin case. The cop is going to get off. You know what I'm saying? That's my opinion. He's not going to go to jail or prison. He's going to get off. I think they want the agitation. They want the people to have something to react to. So that would be my guess. If they didn't want, I don't see them giving them $27 million plus locking this cop up. It's either you're gonna give him $27 million, that cop is gonna walk, or he's gonna go to prison and you're gonna get nothing. If both things happen, I would be surprised, to be honest.
I would suspect massive change if both happened, or some kind of some kind of like reform that hurts like protesters and just basically there are already laws for the police, like I think it's like in Kentucky and like in some other state, if you insult them or call them out or whatever, they get the full right to arrest you. So those laws are already moving in the books. So see, that's all I have to say. They've already.
Oh. I guess I want to put a question out there real quick. While we still got a decent amount of people still in the audience, just their opinion. I was wanting to share at least a clip from all that work, because I've been doing a lot of work, and it's kind of taking me away from this show and my other show, What We've Been Thinking, the panel, and of course doing my short clips. And I was wondering, if you would like, first off, I can show, I can have Chris pull up one of the clips from my channel. Yes, if you would want me to, or you can just put a 1 if you want me to. And the two clips that I had in mind was either Indo-Europeans 4, where that shows the British going around the world. We should watch a clip of that. And then I have another one where it shows Adam, Cheddar Man, and what we call Black UK. And so I have a little bit of those clips, whichever one you want to see, or else we could just get ready to wrap on up. So I'll give a couple of minutes out there in the chat, see if anybody's interested. If not, we'll just carry on and then get ready to wrap up.
Okay, can I answer question or the tallying up? Okay. Thomas, that whole thing about the Nevada them walking out because apparently they pretty much lost control of the situation. That's not new. No, that's just the hypocritical. No matter who, just coming back and biting them in the ass. It's all about the money. It's all about the money. They not only walked out, but they took like 150 G's, 450K along with $450,000 along. So that's not new. None of that's new. There's no money. They're probably gonna try to fix stuff. There's no so that walkout where they all left. That's not surprising. That's the biggest enemy Democrat is another Democrat.
Mm-hmm.
So there's no money. There's no Democrats winning. There's no money in it.
I see ones in the chat. So you know what, Chris? You know what? Can you go to my page? What is it? Hebrew Apologetics with Marcus Cage, and then it should be Indo-Europeans video 4, I think.
I'm on it.
All right. Yeah, I think that one. That one's kind of interesting because a lot of people don't realize when Europe decided to start going around the world and so-called civilizing the other nations, how many places they went to, and just how.
Which one was it, Marcus? Indo-Europeans, which ones?
I believe it's 4. Yeah, I have Thomas said Indo-Europeans.
Hello, this is Hebrew.
Yeah, I have 5 parts of it, and actually that part I put in the Know Your History section, and so eventually I'll start breaking down all of the people and different where they actually, like history, migration, DNA, a couple of things like that, and then I'll also tie that in with what we see in history or what ties into stuff which I see in the Bible. And so that's where the whole Hebrew apologetics part comes in, because it mixes in my faith and identity as a Hebrew Israelite. For those who do not realize that I'm a Hebrew Israelite or don't know what that is about, please come over to the channel, and I would advise probably starting at the first video so you can understand some of my transformation on my, I guess, spiritual journey. Let's see. And I'm
ready.
Yeah, sure. You got it. Let's see, I think it should be the one with the UK, because I want to say, oh,
He's gone. He
probably hit the wrong button.
Yeah, I'll figure it out. He'll get there. There he is.
I see Issachar there. Those who don't know what I'm talking about, I'll explain later on that.
Where do you want me to start, Marcus?
Skip probably about, I guess, three minutes in.
Tensions. English and later British soldiers invaded under the Black Prince in 1367 and continued on through the first, second, third, and fourth raids on Cadiz, and that time when the British took over Gibraltar and Minorca. They gave Minorca back, but decided on keeping Gibraltar forever. In recent history, the British had invaded Belgium in order to support the Belgians, but that wasn't always the case. They conducted two pretty large-scale invasions of modern-day Belgium in 1654 and again in 1701. And Flanders itself was ruled by the English for a few years in the 14th century. The Netherlands was one of England's historical arch rivals, and so there's been plenty of invasions going in this direction across the 17th and 18th centuries. In 1940, the British technically invaded and took over Iceland, before falling into the hands of the Germans. But this was heavily protested by the Icelandic government at the time, so in my books, it still counts as an invasion. Italy, of course, was invaded by the British Army during the Second World War as well in 1943, but there were plenty of invasions before then, dating back to Richard the Lionheart's invasion in 1190. Germany, too, was obviously invaded by the British Army in 1845, and northwestern Germany was occupied by the British for 3 years until 1948, but a lot of German territory was ruled by Britain long before then. The islands of Heligoland were British for most of the 19th century, and the Kingdom of Hanover was effectively ruled under a personal union for over a century between 1714 and 1837. Austria was also invaded in 1945, and the southwest of the country was occupied for a decade. Norway was invaded in 1810 and 1812 during the Napoleonic Wars when it was a part of Denmark-Norway because Denmark was aligned to France, so obviously Denmark was invaded during that time as well. Finland, Estonia, Latvia were all briefly invaded by small units during the Crimean War against Russia because they were all part of the Russian Empire at the time. And of course, Russia itself was invaded then too, as well as in 1918 when the British took over a large chunk of northern Russia for a time in their fight against the Bolsheviks. The territory of modern Ukraine was invaded by British Army units during the Crimean War. The British took over the Croatian island of Vis between 1807 and 1814 during their fight against Napoleon. The British Army had boots and guns on the ground in Bosnia recently between 1992 and 95, fighting against the Bosnian Serbs, and around the same time, the RAF also carried out bombing strikes against Serbian Serb targets in Serbia in 1999.
Hold on, guys. I had a quick joke to make real quick. I just wanted to say, could it be that's why they so mad at Meghan Markle, because they conquered everything except for this one little half-breed chick? You know what I'm saying? They maybe that's why they mad. All right, I'm gonna go back to it. I just had to get that one off.
It was briefly blockaded and invaded in 1913 during the First Balkan War. The British owned the westernmost Ionian islands of Greece between 1815 and 1863 before they gave them back, while Bulgaria was invaded and almost entirely occupied by the British Army between 1918 and 1919 at the end of World War I. Cyprus was a British protectorate between 1878 and 1914 when they decided to just outright annex it to piss off the Turks, and it remained annexed until 1960, except for two small chunks that are still British today. Turkey itself was massively invaded by the British during World War I, and part of it was occupied between 1919 and 1923. That wraps up Europe, so let's move on to Palestine as well as Jordan, where British controlled from the end of World War I to 1948 and 1946, respectively. Lebanon and Syria were both occupied from the Vichy French government briefly during World War II. Iraq was ruled between 1919 and 1932 and invaded again during the Second World War, and again in 1991, and again in 2003. Kuwait was a colony for over 60 years until 1966. Georgia and Azerbaijan were both invaded and occupied right at the end of World War I for a year. Iran has been invaded at least 3 times, with the most notable example being the joint Anglo-Soviet invasion of 1941. Turkmenistan was invaded in 1918 to prevent Bolshevik influence from spreading any further. Afghanistan is a favorite British invasion spot since it's been invaded in 1839, 1878, 1919, and again in 2001. Qatar, Bahrain, the United Arab Emirates, and Oman were all controlled by the British until the early 1970s, while a chunk of Yemen was controlled for over a century between 1839 and 1967. India, Pakistan, Bangladesh, and Sri Lanka were all, of course, invaded many times and outright ruled by the British Empire in parts for nearly 2 centuries between 1757 and 1947. Nepal was invaded in 1814 but never successfully conquered. Bhutan was invaded in 1772 and again in 1864 and was sort of conquered as a protectorate between 1910 and 1948. Burma/Myanmar was invaded in 1826 and was definitely successfully conquered and ruled through 1947. Thailand was briefly invaded in 1945 since they were allied with Japan in World War II, and so was Vietnam in the same year, but that was to support the French government against the growing independence movement. Malaysia and Singapore were each conquered and ruled up until the 1950s and 1960s. Brunei was conquered and ruled up until the 1980s, whereas the Philippines were briefly invaded during the 7 Years' War. China got invaded a lot, and Hong Kong was a colony until as recently as 1997. And while not outright invaded, part of Japan was occupied following World War II between 1946 and 1952. And finally, Indonesia was invaded a bunch during the Napoleonic Wars since it was a Dutch colony allied with France at the time. Next up, Oceania. Australia and New Zealand, of course, were invaded by the British and established as colonies that each gained independence in 1931. Papua New Guinea was also a British colony for its time, as were the island countries of Fiji, Kiribati, the Solomon Islands, Tuvalu, and Vanuatu. Let's move back over to Africa next, which the British have violently visited a lot. In terms of just places the British outright colonized after invasions, there's the Gambia, Sierra Leone, Ghana, Nigeria, Egypt, Sudan, South Sudan, Uganda, Kenya, Tanzania, Zambia, Malawi, Zimbabwe, Botswana, Namibia, and South Africa, along with parts of modern-day Somalia and Guinea. Senegal was briefly invaded and had some of their coastline taken over in the 1700s, while during the Second World War, the British invaded the French colonies of Djibouti, Madagascar, and Comoros after they aligned themselves with the Nazi Vichy regime, and the Italian colonies of Libya, Eritrea, and Ethiopia, although they had also invaded Ethiopia much earlier in 1868. And as German colonies right before World War I, the British also invaded Togo and Cameroon without annexing them afterwards. For the final area of the world left to discuss, let's move over to the Americas. All of Canada was a British colony until 1931, while Newfoundland remained until 1949. The United States, of course, was a colony until 1776, and was invaded again in 1812, and the modern states of Oregon and Washington were claimed right up until 1846. As far as other outright British colonies here go, there was the Bahamas, Jamaica, Belize, Grenada, St. Vincent and the Grenadines, Barbados, St. Lucia, Dominica, Antigua and Barbuda, St. Kitts and Nevis, Trinidad and Tobago, and Guyana. Besides colonies, Cuba was invaded and occupied during the 7 Years' War in 1762. Haiti was invaded in 1793 during the French Revolutionary Wars. The Dominican Republic was invaded way back in 1655 in an attempt at conquest under Oliver Cromwell. Parts of the east coast of Honduras and Nicaragua were conquered and ruled for nearly 2 centuries until 1819. They sent the Navy to invade Mexico in 1861 to force them to repay some debts, and during the splendidly named War of Jenkins here, aka the more lame-sounding War of the Austrian Succession, the British invaded a lot of Spain's colonies, including Panama, a huge one into Colombia, and ultimately Peru. In 1796, the British took over Suriname because it was a Dutch colony, and they were allied with the revolutionary French and later Napoleon. They also invaded Martinique and Guadeloupe because they actually were French during the Napoleonic Wars. Venezuela was invaded in 1902 as part of the so-called Venezuela crisis to force the country to repay some debts they had defaulted on, kind of like Mexico, while Argentina and Uruguay were both invaded during the Napoleonic Wars as well in 1806 when Spain and her colonies were still allied with Napoleon. And that pretty much sums up all of the territory the British have ever ruled and all of the countries this small island has ever invaded. There are a total of 65 countries today who celebrate their independence days from the British Empire. The empire used to rule over a quarter of all the world's land at the same time and was the biggest empire in human history. And in total, today, there have been 117 modern countries that have been aggressively invaded by the British armed forces during some point in their histories, representing a total of 60% of all the world's nations.
That's crazy.
All right, yeah, you can
That's
stop it.
just
Oh, yeah, I was like, I want to hear a reaction first, and like if people want to hear a little bit more, because after that I followed up with the U.S. because we all know that Great Britain is the daughter of the U.S. And so the same people who are doing a lot of that stuff in Europe are the descendants in America who continue doing those same things all the way up until today. And
well,
so
they
I was like,
manipulated.
I'm gonna put that. Huh?
Well, after revolution, years down the road, obviously going into like the 20th century, the British, they made sure they got back in with the leaders here in America, and they basically brought them right back. You know what I'm saying, into the fold without having to do it. They just found a way to do it without sending hundreds or thousands of troops.
Mm-hmm. We'll see, and from those videos. Now, granted, that's I believe the fourth one on Indo-Europeans. If you see how from the first video, the path which took all the way till it gets up to that point, and then after you see that, and it shows which nations fought the most wars and how many battles that they were in, it starts giving you a clear picture of like what a lot of history was mostly about. I was wondering if you want to see a little bit more, let me know in the chat. Say I guess just put a 1 for more, put a two no, you're good, because I know that whole segment about the British could have been a lot of information and a little overwhelming if you're not familiar with it. Emmanuel, what did you think about that little clip about how the British have what they've done as far as basically conquering most of the world?
All right. So the subjugation and ring is and of course the mass accumulation of wealth is exactly, well, I guess it's supposed to distract away from the racism that apparently is going on with Meghan Markle, but or the Duchess. I don't know which one to call her, but they're trying to make it. Oh, she's going to be president, or she was going to be the black princess ever. But at the end of the day, family millions of dollars. Like I think it's like $250 million, $550 million of blood money. The whole thing sits on blood money. And watch reminded me of I know it happened in America, but I didn't know it happened in Britain. But they have legitimate written proof that they paid off all the holders of slaves of all of those colonies listed. Like once slavery was abolished, they literally paid them for every single slave they had country. I did not know that. I mean, I knew they did something like that in America, but to realize that they did it in the UK to that scale, like that's like money on top of money on top of other money. So definitely brought context for me, and seeing his father was from was one of those did so.
And then let me take it a little deeper for you, because some of the other videos kind of lean into it. You got to think of where did the French and the British and all of these empires come from? All of them came from the Roman Empire. These are the remnants of the Roman Empire. And where did the Roman Empire spring out of? The Greek Empire. These are all the same people. And then you track also when we start going into ancient, and in those videos later on, I'm going to start going into ancient Anatolia, the Hittite area, Hivites, people who don't know about this stuff. These are biblical names for different tribes. But through digging really hard through artifacts and archaeology, it starts to paint a picture to who some of these people are, migrations, mixing, with different cultures, and you can start kind of figuring out who some of these people are today when it's talking about the stuff in the Bible. Because like I've said before, I'm a Hebrew Israelite. So for me, I believe wholeheartedly in the Bible. And so it's not like a lot of atheists, I ask them, well, I get it, you have your disbeliefs or whatever, but for me to believe to be an atheist, there's a gazillion questions which aren't answered. For me, when I start reading this book, and as it says in there, you swallow the whole roll. That means you got to read the whole thing and really take it in. And it says it'll be sweet in your mouth at first, and then it'll be bitter in your tummy in the end. Because when you start realizing the ramifications of what the stuff is talking about in there and what it's trying to tell you, it starts explaining giant patches and holes, which I found in history, especially when you go into the Apocrypha. Because the Apocrypha is huge on real world history. It starts talking about like where Hanukkah actually comes from. That's when the Maccabees actually fought back the Greeks. That's what that goes into. And then it goes into all kind of different captivities, which you can see which happened with the children of Israel. And you can track that from nation to nation to nation and all kind of things. So without me, running on too much, but you're able to start to actually, I was able to see what the Bible is saying and physically see locations, migrations, language families, because in there, some of those videos, I explain Indo-Europeans, how they're able to track, like for instance, 46% of the known world speaks an Indo-European language. We're speaking one right now because of those are the people who conquered most of the nations. So whether you're speaking English, Spanish, Greek, French, Latin, even different Indian or Iranian dialects, those are all from the Indo-European language family. And so when you're able to trace the Indo-European language family and the artifacts, you're able to see actually who's who. And my thing is, like I tell everybody, my goal is just to find the truth. And I was always trying to find the truth before I even came back to the Bible. So my search in the truth, looking for through all of this, money ties, politicians, all these things which, I was following before and researching, things started making sense all of a sudden. And so for those who are interested in finding out more and are not faint of heart, even if it's bad news, possibly for them down the road, because here's a secret which most people don't understand about the Bible. It's not good news for everybody. It's definitely not. And what we don't realize is, for instance, I'll just go Children of Israel. Whether you believe who's who in Children of Israel, we're not going to go into that right now. But because they didn't follow the covenant and they broke the covenant, they had to go through punishments. And those punishments, which the Most High told them, would be captivities and all kind of other curses that would go along, that would be on them for a sign on their generations forever. And in there, I'm going to go into some of those curses, going into Deuteronomy 27, Deuteronomy 28, I believe Jeremiah. So I'm going to go into a whole bunch of that stuff, actual real, thorough Bible breakdown in that. So that's the reason I'm not going to go too heavy in that. I know some people are not interested in all that, but even if you're not necessarily a believer, you can get a good understanding and a more simplistic understanding clearly of what's actually going on in the Bible, whether you believe it or not. So if you're dealing with your friends who are in the Bible, who believe in the Bible, and they're saying stuff which don't really make sense, at least you'll be able to say, hey, well, even in your own beliefs, that doesn't add up or make sense. So yeah, I'm going to go into a whole lot of that stuff in there. So if you're interested in that, and what does Thomas says, I know he always has something good to say on these topics. The original English and Spanish language was small. They borrow much pronunciation, words, and definitions from African, Asia, Middle East, and Americas. They spread it by force and blended. Exactly. And the reason why that the reason why it was spread around because of those nations which took over. Said Jehovah is a vile demon. Yeah, the J is only come around since about 400 years. So for colloquial purposes, certain Christians might feel like they say Jesus or Jehovah. I won't go ahead and necessarily beat them down about it. But under my understanding and some of the research which I've done into looking into the Paleo Hebrew, and when you compare that with the Tetragrammaton and the text and things like that, and I'm not talking about this Yiddish, I'm talking about the Paleo Hebrew. It would be.
Oh, we can't.
It would be
arrest.
Yeah, it would
look,
be
arrest
Yahweh.
tyrants. Arrest tyrants wrote that doctor's name. Dr. Fugazi down. We had a show taken off because we was going too much into Dr. Fugazi. That's why I don't even say his name. But yeah, it's just I thought that was kind of funny that he mentioned it. But Marcus, we're at like 1:45 now.
Alrighty, yeah, I guess we're going ahead and wrap it up. But I just wanted to make sure that you guys have the opportunity to check that out. It's going to be a lot of historical stuff, stories, archaeology, DNA, and biblical all coming together. And so please check that out. Thank you, everyone who joined us tonight. And also, please tune in tomorrow. What we've been thinking, the panel. If I don't have everybody for the panel, I still have a bunch of things which I want to talk about. So I might hop on, even if it's only for like 30 minutes or so. So please catch that. That'll be at 2:30 p.m. Pacific time. So I guess figure out what time that would be in your time zone. Everyone have a wonderful night, and hopefully safety and all that good stuff for your families out there. You guys have a good one. You guys want to say anything before we get out?
No, man, you good. Just want to tell the audience, be safe, take care of yourselves, be vigilant, and question a whole bunch of shit.
Oh, and happy no, I don't know if everybody will observe it, but happy savings time. It's about to kick in a couple. I don't know what time that is.
Oh yeah, that's right. The time's supposed to go back, right?
Is it spring forward?
No, spring forward. Time's supposed to go forward. Is that today?
Yep. I think so.
Oh wow. Okay. That's what it is. All right, guys. Thank everybody for watching. We out of here.
All right. Good one. Have a good one, guys.